Alright everyone, I had a thought the other day and it was actually paired with a story I had read, days before, and it was basically about, hey, counter-propaganda is difficult because, propaganda spreads quickly in the internet age. The idea is it goes out there, it ingrains itself into people's minds, and then once it's been ingrained, it's really difficult to combat it. Once you've got a consensus of reality built, it doesn't matter if it's totally, completely false, as long as it's spread quick enough so that nothing can effectively counter it. Only a minority of people is ever going to switch their minds. They'll take it for granted that something is true. Look at the Gulf of Tonkin. Oh yeah, ship was sunk, we need to go kill people. And it's like years and years later, it's proven completely false. It's proven that it was literally a false flag event, and in the most literal sense, it was just a prelude to war, and it was bullcrap. But, people at the time, if you suggested that you were a conspiracy theorist, that's the other way. If someone does attempt to perform counter-propaganda on something that a corporation or a state or maybe a mainstream religion or something doesn't like, or someone who's famous, then they'll call you a shill or conspiracy theorist to some crazy bullshit. It works because it evokes an emotional image of someone who's, unkempt and crazy, basically. Someone who's going through a psychotic episode. But here's the real reason, tied with that the corporate media really wants to censor people like me. And you, to tell the truth. The reason that they want fact checkers, so-called, on Facebook and Google and Twitter, and to kick people off who have maybe more fringe views, so-called, and to kick people off, they're like, oh, they said hell, so they're not PG rated. We need to make sure that people don't see what they say. The reason why, like, Twitter has a new quality filter that apparently filters out anything I do on the latest page. Now, the reason for this is to prevent counter-propaganda. You see, here's the thing. The corporate media is all more or less in cahoots. They've decided not to be monopolistic so much as to form a trust. A trust is just multiple corporations. They're like non-aggression principle between them, no attempt to really compete. So they get together, they're like, oh, our profits are down, cable's dying, newsprint is dying out, like Time magazine, magazine, what the fuck is that? It's something you see in your doctor's office or at the dentist, and that's pretty much it. It's decoration next to the lanes at Walmart. That's basically what a magazine amounts to. It's something pretty and flashy that no one ever actually buys. They just sort of pick it up and skim through it while they're waiting for the cashier to ring up their fucking 10 pounds of bananas. That's what it is. Radio, terrestrial radio at least, is dying. So they're looking at their profits slip away. They're looking at their audience age and begin to die off. They look at somebody like me. Or they look at someone like you or any other content creator on YouTube or has a blog or something. They're like, oh, their average audience is half the age and growing twice as quickly. Ours is shrinking. They're skyrocketing. In the last few years, like doubling the collective audience in many channels of the alt sort of tech alt media world. Alt tech's a Gab, explosive growth. BitChute now, hundreds of thousands of users. A lot of people hadn't heard of it last year. You'd think of Minds. Minds is, gargantuan compared to a few years ago. And this is happening all over the internet. So what do they really fear? They fear counter-propaganda. Here's the thing. The mainstream media is used to telling America something, or telling Europe something, or telling the world something. And before anybody is capable of actually countering that message, the message is more or less ingrained. You don't have to fool all of the people all of the time. You just have to fool most of them most of the time. There's some throwaway, they can tell the truth occasionally on a throwaway issue, and then they'll say, well, look, this is objectively true. You fact checkers agree. CNN is always honest with you, even though they lie straight out. It's like with that WikiLeaks thing. You remember when CNN came out and tried to convince its audience it was illegal to go to WikiLeaks and read things there? It's 100% false. It is provably objectively false. It wasn't because of a mistake that this person was making. This was deliberate. It was an attempt at propaganda to keep people from reading the Clinton email releases. The internet, within a half an hour, had a field day and was able to prove that this is completely false. On a legal basis, on a moral basis, what are you talking about? CNN's full of crap. That really pisses CNN off, because 10 years ago, they would have been able to put that out, even on the internet. It wouldn't have gotten fact-checked. It would have taken a day or two before fact-checking by the alternative, actual independent media could kick in and counter their message. By then, everyone would have seen it. Everyone already would have seen the original. It would have been implanted in their brain. Hey, CNN is honest, CNN is trustworthy, this is what they're saying, it must be true. And then, Anyone who says, hey, no, actually, legally speaking, it's not, oh, well, maybe they made a mistake, and they'll just sort of brush it off. But the original notion sticks in their mind as though it was still true. It's the way propaganda works quickly. The problem of counter-propaganda is that it's reactive. The propaganda's already there, or you can't be trying to counter it unless you're attempting to predict what kinds of propaganda will be utilized. Even those of us who sort of study the issue and maybe understand it more, all we can do is give a general notion. Like years ago I say, hey, the legacy media will attack the alt media. They're going to come for YouTubers and bloggers and people like that. But I couldn't tell you what form it was going to take. Basically, there are some guesses you can make, but you can never be sure. And also you got to realize, if you put it out there that something's going to happen, those other groups may do something else specifically because you forewarned people effectively. So does that mean they've got multiple avenues they can use? It becomes very difficult, but it is far easier now than it was even a few years ago. Things are so instantaneous, so interconnected, it becomes easier to counter the corporate bullshit, neoliberal, neocon message of the establishment. They're pro-war, they're pro-tax, they want worldwide enslavement, but enslavement in the Shakespearean sense. They're never going to draw back the curtains as, what was it, Carlin, I think, said, oh, at the end of it all, they'll draw back the curtains, there'll be just a blank wall. No, they'll never do that. They'll keep the show going forever. It's just that they'll steadily encroach on more and more people's freedoms, boil that frog until it's nothing more than a husk. It won't be worth living in 100 years if they get their way. But there are a lot of people who are taken in by propaganda. They think that somehow governments are magically, they became benevolent recently. Somehow, after thousands of years of constant abuse and war, governments now, they actually care. Corporations now actually care after hundreds of years of abusing everybody around them. Stabbing one another in the back, lacking worker protections, grinding up rats and canning them as though they were beef. After hundreds of years of doing that shit, all of a sudden they care. Businesses care. Yeah, it's no longer about profit. They don't need any form of constraint or in the realm of human communication. No, not at all. It's almost like the globalists have taken the ANCAP line in many cases and warped it out of context and tried to use it to support worldwide imperialism or something. It's a really, really bizarre situation that we're facing. And the only reason why many people in the world accept their bullshit, their lies as truth, is propaganda. They've been told that if they deviate from that sort of worldview, or if they question the people trying to force-feed them that worldview, that there's something wrong with them, that they're a conspiracy theorist or an extremist or they're on a fringe. You should feel bad because you're like this other group of people that does the same thing for maybe more malevolent reasons. Oh, you're being like a Nazi or a communist or something because, you know, you've come to the same conclusion that the mainstream media is full of crap. Well, they are full of crap. You don't need to be extreme in order to understand that. But they're terrified of us. That's why they're coming after us, especially on the monetary end. Also, by the way, prediction came true. YouTube memberships are now a thing. YouTube is steadily moving in the direction of being basically about literal channels on YouTube. As eventually they'll amalgamate them into confederacies, they'll give you the option to literally conjoin channels together and have non-stop live broadcasting on collective channels. You watch, they will eventually do that. That's the next step. It's what they're moving towards clearly. Decent idea, by the way. I mean, people like that sort of stuff. It'll become a little bit like TV, maybe. You'll have to be sanitized. You'll have to be PG-13 or less in order to actually take part in the program. Those of us, therefore, who are edgy will remain standalone and on our own. There are workarounds, by the way, so not a big problem, but yeah, it's the way that Google and YouTube are moving in. Trust me. Oddly enough, that may make us more competitive with the lamestream media. They have the same thing. They do live streams across YouTube and stuff. Plus, I mean, you look at like CNN's page, it's rapid-fire video clips that they amalgamate on there. You know, it's basically like anyone else doing that would probably be kicked off for spam, to tell the truth. That's about all. Peace out.